Welcome back to the 7th grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about nonlinear warfare. It's hard to discuss nonlinear warfare and to not discuss Sun Tzu and the Art of War. The Art of War is governed by 5 constant factors to be taken into account in one's deliberations when seeking to determine the conditions in the field. These are 1. The moral law. 2. Heaven. 3. Earth. 4. The commander. 5. Method and discipline. The art of war is of vital importance to the state. It is a matter of life and death, a road either to safety or to ruin. Hence, it is a subject of inquiry, which can on no account be neglected. In the art of war, it also says that supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. A well-run state is required to wage a successful war without losing the peace. A corrupt leadership and a disunited population will find victory difficult and peace impossible, no matter how well led an occupying army may be. Eventually, graft, inefficient supplies, and hostility toward the objective will undermine an army as it eats well one year and starves the next, or excuses lax discipline today while demanding perfection tomorrow. So the United States has been under attack for the past 2 decades, and the common person does not see what's going on as an attack. And it has become more and more obvious lately with the problems going beyond the normal partisan politics, where social awareness and social equity and virtue signaling has found its way into the military, into the politics and the lawmakers' offices. And these things are by design. And all of these things that are splintering all of the major pillars of American civilization are being done by communist governments around the world because they hate democracy, the republic, and capitalism. Now, as a black person in America, this topic, it's a split personality situation because as an enlightened black person, you don't give a fuck about these crackers, but you do give a fuck about America. And when I say that, it means you give a fuck about the state of black America and what happens to the rest of black people and what happens to your family and your cousins and your friends and your extended family. So it is important if a communist power wants to take this country down, because then you will have a new slave master, and one that is way worse, that has caused our ancestors to suffer and die under their rule for centuries. So that is why this episode is about nonlinear warfare and how ancient teachings and ideologies are being used by a corrupt communist government to wage war and control this chunk of land that we are living on right now.
The issue, whenever you try to have this talk, you got people who are going to say, well, America did this. Yes, America fucked our people over too. Let's not get that twisted. We are not these people that don't, racism doesn't exist, or this doesn't happen, or no. We're not house Negroes. What my brother's trying to explain to you is that there's worse shit out there than this. And the thing about capitalism, you have an ability to go upwardly mobile. You can move yourself up. But the issue with capitalism is that too many people move themselves up individually and not move the group up. And that's where when you recognize these other people, always, whenever you have people come to America, they practice group economics. That's a big thing. A lot of black folks, we don't tend to practice group economics, So that's what's going to make it really difficult for our people to get where they're supposed to. And also you have things, laws, racism, that have been placed in the way to impede that, of course. But when you talk about nonlinear warfare, what we're saying is when you hear the word attack, America's under attack, you think of a bomb, you think of a direct punch, you think of somebody hitting you in the face. But when you talk about nonlinear, you're talking about the long game. You're talking about people not even realizing that they're in a fight. And when you don't realize you're in a fight, you don't tend to defend yourself properly. And that's what's happening right now. America is so big that we assume that these little things are small, they're insignificant. but that's not the case. You know, that's that death by a thousand cuts. That's what we're going through right now. We're being attacked on so many different levels and so many different places at the same time that we don't even realize it. Or that idea that that adversary is not that big, which we see what happened with 9/11. You literally, we expect to be bombed. We look for aircraft carriers, we look for tanks in the street, and we know nobody's going to do that. But then somebody hijacks a plane, excuse me, and flies it into a building as an act of terror. That's an attack. But we didn't plan for that because we thought that nobody can get to us. There hasn't been an attack on American soil in so many years and all this crazy stuff. But when you're dealing with nonlinear warfare, that your adversary has a different objective. His objective is to kill you and drown you slowly, and that's what's happening to us right now. We're under attack on so many fronts.
One of the strategies of the art of war is to use the terrain against your opponent. And so when you go walking into the woods, there are so many other things that you have to be aware of. When you're stepping on ground that you are unfamiliar with, if you can't see the forest floor, if you're walking through tangles of vines, there could be snakes all through there. There could be a huge anthill that you step on, and now you're covered in ants, red fire ants, and they're biting the shit out of you now.
Hold on. When we say terrain, there's also political terrain.
Hold on.
And that's what.
Hold on. So I'm using the forest as an analogy for how there are levels to combat, and how when you're navigating through a terrain, you have to be aware of all the threats, no matter how small or how large they may be. And so in the art of war, of course, it does talk about meteorology and using topographical landscape and how the terrain can work to your favor against the enemy. But it's analogous to the levels of warfare also.
Terrain is also going to be political terrain. And a such thing right now is the LBGTQ community, where they didn't have any traction before, but now they have traction. And so we can be arguing about a small point with this at the exact same time that we have an adversary who is on our shores and we're not realizing. We have daily espionage from the Chinese government, but we're arguing over whether or not
Check this out, man. The United States government is well aware of this threat, but they don't want to freak out the public, and they want to handle this as delicately as possible without being overt, and also fucking up their money interests with China.
It's delicate. It's a balance.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It is a balance.
It's so delicate that in a conversation with a PhD rocket scientist, a legit rocket scientist, I talked with this guy for about 4 hours, and he told me in his lab, there are no Chinese students, there are no Chinese professionals working in the lab. I found that very peculiar, and I began to chuckle, and he understood why. He was like, you know why. He's like, you know why they're not in there.
But see, the thing is, like I said, we grew up in the 80s where the bad guys were Russia, and you knew about the KGB. And there are like real live covert operations and sleeper cells.
But come to find out, that was a house of cards. That was a paper tiger.
Yeah, hold it. Yes and no, because they still specialize in those tactics. The thing is, the point I was making is
the Soviet Union was pumped up to be bigger than it really was, and they could barely support themselves.
Socialism was pumped up to be bigger than what it was, and you didn't realize that they couldn't sustain it. Ronald Reagan beat them with our tax returns, with our tax money. We had enough money in reserve to beat those guys and starve them out. But the point I'm making is that in your mind, who your adversary is different than who, you don't recognize that these Chinese people have been spying on us for years.
Okay, but check this out. But see, here's the thing, though. You said starve. That word is an operative word because those people are used to starving. And so they want Americans to know what it's like to starve. And so Stalin, what he did is he said, you know what? We can spend all this time and money fighting these people in the Ukraine. What we're going to do is, because that was considered the breadbasket of Europe, right? It grew so much wheat. They said, okay, forget about that. Let's not send any troops over. Let's send a small amount of troops, the minimum amount. And we're going to go to each of these farms. We're going to take their farming equipment, We're going to take their seeds and the grain. We're going to take all the harvest. We're going to burn the farm down and move these people to the city. And anybody else that's left behind will starve to death. Millions of people starve to death.
But you understand why that's so deep, though. And this sometimes when we're talking to our audience, we got to make this clear: is that by moving people to the city, you automatically
You
make them
control
dependent on
them.
you make them dependent on the government. Most of us move to the city for job opportunities, right? And nobody wants to admit this. You move to the city for sex. You have access to more pussy and more dick than you do in the country. The country, you got 35 people over a 10-mile area. The city, you got millions of people and millions of opportunities in one area. It's not just financial. A lot of that shit has to do with sex. Don't nobody want to say that, but that's the real thing. And so you get there, you have these more opportunities, but you also are more beholden to that local government. That's one thing that when you always see these big cities and people try to get advice from big cities, and that shit don't apply here. You hear us talk about New York, LA, and Chicago. Those are three major cities where they're always doing things, and they think that whatever we do here works everywhere. Like, how many times have you ran into a New York nigga that just thought he was so much smarter than you? Or how many times have you ran into a motherfucker from Chicago that was a hustler and
Yeah,
thought that
but he can't grow a single crop.
yeah, but
That
my point,
motherfucker cannot start a fire
they don't have any real
from nothing.
skills. They have soft
No
skills.
real
They,
skills. Those are all
they,
soft skills. Listen,
uh,
all they're good at, they're rats. They're rats that are used to running the maze and outsmarting other
Ye-
rats.
yes, and hold it. I'm not dissing people from there because, like, you know as well as I do, many of those people, like,
Just talk plain, man. Just talk
oh no, no,
plain.
no, I'm getting there. Most of them niggas up in New York came from South Carolina, came from rural areas. Most like dudes in Detroit, they all
But
came
they
from Mississippi.
never bothered to learn any of those valuable skills that their relatives had living out in the
Hold it.
country.
No, the original OGs had it. Like when you hear about the Frank Lucases, all them cats all knew.
Yeah, but we're not talking about them no more.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's my point. They're like three generations removed from that, and so now that they think that what works here works everywhere, and it doesn't. But the point also is by being that dependent on the government and different shit in the city itself, you also open yourself up to observation, and you don't even realize it. That's the situation that we don't recognize. That like, okay, the same thing that these cats are doing in these communist nations and these socialist republics and all that shit. Well, our own government has been doing to us for a while. Whenever you do the research on the Malcolm X murder, you realize there was a New York cop following him for months. That was his job. You had FBI agents. So that's one thing. It's much easier to follow and observe somebody in a city setting than it is to observe somebody in a rural setting. Because if I live on my farm, hey, we got land out in the country. There's a new family out there. You know that shit. If you don't want to be observed in a rural area, you can avoid people. But when you're in the city, people can follow you and watch you and not realize it. So the exact same tactics that these other governments are doing, our own government's doing to ourselves. That's what we mean by nonlinear war. It's really easy to if I walk in a room and you sock me, we fighting. But it's really easy if I walk in a room and you've hid my stapler. It's real easy if I walk in a room and you hit my phone. You're stopping my progress, but you wouldn't consider that an attack. You're like, that's not an attack. That is an attack. It stops you from going forward. Same thing with racism. Racism is subtle. That shit of people burning crosses in your yard, yeah, that scares you and makes you move. But the fact of the matter is, when I don't get that promotion, when I have to have a much better resume than my adversary, or when you have straight nepotism going on, so that's subtle. It's the subtle shit that kills you and holds you back because, like Jordan Peterson said, you don't realize that it's happening, and so that you don't respond the same. A good attack makes you wonder if you were even attacked. You can't put your finger on it, and that's what we're trying to warn people when you're dealing with a nonlinear or you're dealing with somebody who specializes in the long game. We talked about this in past podcasts. So many of the products that we use from China are spying on us. We don't even realize it. The big thing we're talking about right now is that use of TikTok. TikTok, you give TikTok permission to fucking violate you, just so you can have a fucking filter. You're an idiot. But I love drones. People love these drones, but these drones, which are so much cheaper, that are made in China, are literally sending them information Why do you need Wi-Fi for a drone? Don't even make sense. But yes, that is a way for you to give. You're giving away your information. You're giving away your freedom. You don't realize you're being attacked. In fact, you're so happy that you got that drone for a discount that you're excited that you're being fucked. Like you're literally cheering that you're getting fucked over, and that's what makes this nonlinear war so unique. Is that you're excited to be violated.
So the Biden administration recently, they've been doing things that didn't make any sense, like cutting off the pipeline that goes from the Canada, the Michigan Canada area, Ontario corridor, cutting that off and cutting off the supply of oil in North America from there, which didn't really make any sense, and making Americans more dependent on foreign oil or partially dependent on foreign oil. But that drives up the costs. So there's this, this fluctuation in the fuel prices going up, which doesn't make any sense because North America is now producing more oil than the Saudis are. But hold on. So
you're saying some deep shit.
So check this out. I know, but you gotta wait, man, because I got a bunch of shit. So the thing is that there's things that are being done by economic hitmen, right? And there was a book that came out like 10 years ago. It's called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And this guy basically gave you the blueprint of what these multinational corporations do at the behest of the government when they go into these countries and they topple the government by destroying the economy first. And
but
so,
also, in one of them books, they also talk about union busting. They talk about all kinds of shit.
And
you don't even realize.
But check this out. So, one thing I want to bring up is a story from August 12th. And it talks about how there was a pipeline that broke and it spilled 45,000 gallons of diesel fuel in Wyoming. Wow. So, diesel fuel is important right now more than ever because the DEF, the fuel additive that goes into diesel fuel, diesel trucks that are transporting food across the United States. Well, if you basically make that fuel additive hard to find or hard to access, then it becomes more expensive for those trucks to transport food. But that's not enough because we can find some like companies or chemists and like have them make some batches on the quick, So all right, fine, that problem solved. So okay, so let's spill a whole bunch of diesel fuel. Let's waste the diesel fuel so that way, it becomes even more precious and hard to get a hold of. So they're basically choking off the fuel supply for these truckers that are transporting our food. And in California...
Don't forget the trains are diesel also.
Correct.
Diesel runs all of our food, yes.
And the shipping freighters also.
Yeah.
So now in California, they're basically waging a war against independent truckers. They're making it completely impossible to be an independent trucker in the state of California. And then they use the guise of, Agenda 2030 and Agenda 21 to bring in about, all these like social equity, ESG, all these types of, economical and climate change friendly type of things that it's actually what it is, it's the slow motion demolition of the American economy and
from within.
So I'm going to read this article real quick. So basically, this was August 12th, 2022. This was about 4 or 5 days ago. All right, so a diesel pipeline in Wyoming owned by a company that's being sued by federal prosecutors over previous spills in 2 other states cracked open and released more than 45,000 gallons of fuel, state regulators and a company representative disclosed Friday. Cleanup work is going on from the spill that discovered by the pipeline's operator on July 27th. And the fuel spilled into sandy soil on private ranch land near the small community of Sussex in eastern Wyoming and did not spread very far. Contaminated soil was being excavated and placed into a temporary staging area, and it will be spread onto a nearby dirt road where the fuel is expected to largely evaporate. Okay, so they knew this was not going to be a huge toxic wasteland, but it'd be a safe way to waste 45,000 gallons of diesel fuel. So somebody like, well, a person will say, well, 45,000 gallons isn't a lot, in a year. Yes, it is. If you want, like, say, if you need to stop, say, we'll say 500 trucks from moving on the road. If you remove 500 trucks from the transportation ecosystem, that's going to put a huge dent into the price of food. See, people think, oh, well, that's just going to affect the price of fuel. No, this is being done to affect the price of food.
It's a trickle down.
Oh, no.
Economic
This is not trickle down. This is mushroom cloud. That's what the fuck this is.
But what I'm saying is that it's one of these things that starts up here, and you think it's unrelated. All that shit is related to it. Everybody drinks from that tea. You understand? So literally,
but the story is crafted in a way to make you focus on, oh, this is an ecological nightmare. Yes, it's not good. It's not a good thing at all.
That a whole. I knew you. The biggest social engineering thing we got going on right now is the whole fucking carbon footprint bullshit. And like, don't get me wrong. The environment is important. We need to have animals. We need to have trees, fresh air, and fresh drinking water. Yes, but also that is the best. How come for the past 7 years the pipeline, Indian land, all this pipeline shit has always been in the media because that's one way for them to control you. If they're controlling the petroleum, they're controlling the diesel. This whole like, okay, the pipeline is on the reservation. How did it get there in the first place? A pipeline takes years to build. Nobody surprised them niggas with a pipeline. You understand? They didn't come to work one day, then go home like, there's a pipeline in my yard. No. This pipeline shit was negotiated years ago, and they got their cut. Now all of a sudden, now that people are trying to control us by controlling our fuel supply, all of a sudden this pipeline thing has become a problem. And all these leaks, how do they happen in the pipeline? By mistake. Some of that shit is wear and tear. They've been there for 20, 30 years. Some of that shit is
consistent, like pipeline break after. I mean, come on, man. Like,
some of that shit
like
is sabotage.
That damn like sloppy at your jobs?
Yes, that's my whole point. And so the thing is, when you talk about the environment, is an easy way for people just back off that conversation. It's like the anti-Semitic thing. Like, hey, I don't like this Jewish guy. You're anti-Semitic. Like, no, I don't like my neighbor because his dog shits in my yard. But if the owner of that dog is Jewish, and I say anything bad about that, well, that's how that environmental shit is. If Trump's a dick, but he was speaking up trying to say like, hey, we still make a shitload of jobs come from this oil and good paying jobs. Again, he's a dick. I'm not defending the dude, but what I'm saying is that when you hit that environment button, everybody backs off and you can say whatever the fuck you want. And that's what's going on right now. And they're saying that these pipelines are so bad. You can't just pop a pipeline up on a fucking Indian reservation. That shit was negotiated years before. And they're getting their money. Now you got a couple people who rile these people up and say, like, you don't want that. It's leaking. Like, how it's leaking because it was sabotaged. And now we don't have a fuel supply. And that was the point I'm trying to tell you. Like, people don't understand. Diesel runs everything in this country. Like, in Europe, diesel runs all the cars. But our cars run on gas over here. But our trucks, our trains, our boats, and I think jet fuel is a little bit different. But all the other shit is diesel.
But check this out. What has been going on quietly is the railroad conglomerates across America have been quietly converting parts of their fleet to steam. Look, people aren't talking about this. They're doing that for longevity.
Yes, they're trying to get off of diesel, which is cool. I'm glad.
Because they understand that is something that can be sabotaged.
This was not done by accident. And before we had smart people in place that was looking out for their fellow man. Now they're just looking out for the dollar. And when you realize that most of these companies are all owned by BlackRock in some way, shape, or form, and it's more about a quick dollar than it is about longevity and taking care of the American people, that's where the shit gets dicey. And the reason we're here, we talk about this quiet war shit. Not every enemy is a foreign enemy. Many of these enemies are corporations in America that just want your dollar but don't care about your welfare. They want to hit these billions and billions of dollars, but they don't give a damn about the people, the 300 million people that live here that pay that bill. They don't give a damn. And so that's a big issue. So your enemy ain't just China. Your enemy ain't just Russia. Your enemy are these corporations that are worried more about a tax break and not paying taxes than actually maintaining their business and making a suitable place for you to live. They don't give a damn about that shit. And so, yeah, this is important that we start getting people to recognize that we're under attack on multiple fronts. And like I said, China is damn good at you not recognizing that they're attacking you. You know, they do that shit real
It's
subtle as hell.
deflection. It's
Yeah,
misdirection. So there's other forms of misdirection that are being used
sleight of
by
hand.
allies of
Mm,
people who, okay, China has allies, all right? And just like you had the axis of evil, it was Japan and it was Italy and it was Germany, okay? But listen, so there's other people like George Soros that are funding these he's an agent of chaos, okay? And so he'll fund these programs, these projects that'll help cause confusion and foment, disruptions in society. I'll give you an example. Migration, immigrants, right? And so the whole immigrant thing, when you see these caravans of all these fucking immigrants, like, we're going to America. That's not how that shit happens. Like, like some dude that wants like a better life for his family is like, yo, we about to get the fuck up out of here. Let's go. It's like, it's not a motherfucker that's like, hey, we about to have some white people style Bonnaroo get together and walk all the way to America. It doesn't happen like that. That's money behind that shit. I'll give you a perfect example. There's a story last year, September 17th of last year. It was a Reuters story, okay? And in Ciudad Acuña, Mexico, over 10,000 mostly Haitian migrants sleeping under Texas bridge and more expected. That was the headline. So the White House has stated that all 14,000 immigrants at the border were Haitian. The Department of Homeland Security has declared another 20,000 Haitians in Colombia waiting for their Soros printed Visa card, free cell phone, and loaded debit card waiting to hit your bus to Texas. Check this out. The media states that the economy in South America took an unprecedented toll as a result of the pandemic.
yep.
So, poverty-stricken Haitians just wanting a better life are making this trip to Texas. But according to Reuters, Chile's economy, the country of Chile, their economy had rebounded by 14% as of April 2021, while commercial activity soared 33% and services jumped 16%. In fact, it would appear that the Chilean economy fared far better than the U.S. So, from anywhere from about $500 to $3,500, a U.S. citizen can take a flight from the U.S. to Haiti for vacation, right? I wonder which airline is being, commandeered for this. But that would amount to about $45 million in taxpayer funds being diverted to Haitians. Now, these people are probably being flown back to Haiti or South America. But there's reports that Haitians are flown back to Haiti immediately and attacked U.S. pilots and ICE agents. So, check this out. A typical Greyhound bus holds 50 people. To accommodate 14,000 would require
Yeah.
280. Listen, to accommodate 14,000 people, you would need 280 bus loads. So, the problem
How they get there?
yeah, there are no American buses that drive to and from South America. How the fuck are they getting to fucking Texas? And listen, if any of you have ever had any Haitian friends or have known any Haitian people, and they tell you the story about how they got to America, they always come through Florida or they come through New York City.
Yep.
They can always come through the Caribbean, to the East Coast. They don't come through fucking Texas. But
No, Texas is not far. The Gulf of Mexico. This is still Gulf of Mexico. It's not, but that's not their route.
Florida
That's
is
not.
right there.
Yes.
Texas, dude, the Gulf of Mexico, that shit
You
is fucking, that's 800 miles away from fucking the east coast of Florida. That's far. Listen,
the,
listen to me. It's
this is not by accident.
Listen
This
to
is
me. Let
this
me
is
finish what I'm
disruptive.
saying, bro. Hold on. Just hold your horses. So this shit gets crazy when you start to break this down. So when you consider you need 280 buses to carry 14,000 people, you start scratching your head and like, well, okay, that doesn't make any sense because these people are supposed to be dirt fucking poor.
Poor.
Where are
Yes.
they going to get this money to ride these fucking buses? There's no bus that goes from South America to America. Okay, so it's like, all right, then you got to catch a flight somewhere. Okay, so these people decide to fly from Haiti to Chile, and that's going to cost anywhere from $400 to $900. Okay, but these people are like poor as shit, so that's not easy. So then a person walks to Ecuador. Okay, then this person hops a bus from Ecuador to Mexico, costing an additional $300 without papers. And then finally, you're walking from Mexico City to Texas, 500 miles. All 14,500 of them. Somehow arriving in Texas simultaneously.
Makes no sense. That's a logistical nightmare. Look, so when my brother tells you George Soros is paying for this shit, you have a billionaire who is paying to
Listen,
fuck up our.
if you go and you dig, you probably see that there's some NGO, some non-governmental organization, some non-profit that's paying for these refugees and helping this get done. And guess what? The Clintons might be involved. The Clinton Foundation might be involved because they always dipping that toe into Haiti to go steal some black babies. So let's continue. This is what. Listen. This is being done to cause disruption, to cause disharmony, to cause people to get into partisan politics and to fight with each other. Okay? And you're so focused on some black person getting chased by white dudes on horses. Oh, that makes me think of slavery. Yeah, it does. But you gotta look past that because that's MK Ultra.
You have to know where the real fight is. Here's the deal with Haiti. The Clintons fucked Haiti up. So you have a lot of Haitians that hate Americans right now. But and so then you got somebody who's offering them a chance to fuck America and possibly make money in the process. The idea of moving 14,000 people from place to place just so you can
Is
screw us over.
mad expensive. That's so fucking expensive to do that.
So yeah, we have enemies everywhere. And don't get me wrong, we have done some of these people wrong.
Yeah, but
I'm
you
not
gotta
saying
understand that like George Soros was a Nazi youth. This dude is straight up Fourth Reich, not Third Reich, the Fourth Reich.
I understand that. And look, what we're saying is that sometimes when you see these conflicts, this environmental shit, when you see that you have a bunch of people at the border and we're not letting them in, sometimes Mexico, because of NAFTA under Clinton, Mexico and Canada are doing fine financially. And these ain't Mexicans coming over the border. These are people from Central America and fucking South America coming to the border. And sometimes Mexico don't let them in. So that's why. So again, how
That's
they
what you don't talk about. That's what people
yeah,
don't hear about is how the Mexicans are
Mexico
not letting the
defend
Ecuadorians in the fucking
yeah,
the border.
Mexico defends their southern border like crazy. Remember them all them kids up here from Honduras. They were not from Mexico, and so they get separated from their families. Look, so again, we always talk about these pedophilia rings. How come these kids keep getting separated? Why are you categorizing kids over here and adults over here? What the fuck? But some of them, I'm just trying to tell you, a lot of them kids are from Central America. They're from Honduras, and so Mexico is doing fine economically.
But
In fact, remember,
how does this start? Like there has to be. This is how the order goes down. Soros is like, I need 10,000 immigrants at the U.S. southern border. I need you. I'm gonna send this to. I'm gonna call Ralph at this nonprofit, and I'm gonna send him 200,000 to make it happen. I'm gonna give him extra 20 if he does it by Thursday.
yeah, give them 30 million and just make it happen. And that
Yes,
person logistically, they start to figure out like, how do I get people from me?
a fixer.
Also,
It's a team of fixers.
but also the fixer also knows the political climate in the area. And like I told you, many people are not happy with America because of the Clintons. So not only are you moving people, but you're moving people who are already pissed at you already. So they don't mind coming over here fucking shit up. They don't mind like, hey, I'll take 3 plane trips and 6 bus rides just to fuck Hillary in the ass. That's what you. So these people have already been, I don't want to say conditioned, but they've already been offended or done wrong by somebody. So this is not a problem. Look, again, let's talk about China a little bit. So right now, we know China is fucking over Europe, fucking over Asia, damn sure fucking over Africa. I forgot the name of it's called the road in Rockland.
No, it's One Belt.
What? But no, there was another term they use for how it's a term they use for when they go in there and make roads and bridges.
Half-ass. They do it half-ass. They put it like a half of a bridge and they just walk away.
But yes, but there's a plan. I forgot how it's called. But here's the crazy part. So China has all this swing through the world, right? But right now, China's own people are revolting. Right now, China is big in Africa. People in Africa love we need that Chinese money, but people in China are starving and they're pissed off because
they can't go to the bank and pull their money out because there's tanks and soldiers preventing them from doing that.
They put them tanks in place. Here's what's happening. So in China, people literally buy a house before the house is built or before the house is available. So they start paying a mortgage for you're paying a mortgage for 3 months, and at the end of 3 months, you move into your house. Well, people are paying a mortgage and they ain't got no house yet. It's like 8-9 months later, and so they're in front of the banks protesting. They're protesting like Americans, and China does not like that. So literally, these people are refusing. We're not paying any more mortgages. Fuck you and your mortgage. We're not going to sit here and give you money and not get nothing in return. So China has put their tanks out there. This is another Tiananmen Square situation where they're going to start shooting and killing their own people. But China, that money ain't that definite that everybody thinks it is. But see, China will spend money in the rest of the world to control and have power, but don't take care of its own home front. And that's just about to bite them in the ass. So this idea that China, and another thing that we talked about it on past podcasts, China and Russia had got together and made their own currency. So if they want to buy oil, or if you want to buy their oil, you're going to use their currency, which is backed the same way Africa did, back to the minerals in the ground. It's back to the gold. It's back to the silver. It's back to the nickel. It's backed by the nickel. Excuse me. And so, like I said, that's the biggest thing, and you don't hear that shit talking in America. You need to listen to that, because what made the American dollar so powerful is that you use the dollar to buy oil, you use the dollar to buy gold. But now these motherfuckers are making their own currency, and that's what Gaddafi tried to do. They killed Gaddafi because of it. So that should be the biggest news in the world, is that okay, this new currency is huge, and this is but they ain't talking about that. And the other point, like I said, I'm making about China. China is big on espionage and fucking other people over, but it loves to kill its own people. Y'all need to pay attention to that shit. So China is not this juggernaut that it pretends to be. Like my brother said, that's that paper tiger shit where you think these motherfuckers got it on the ball, and they don't. Like I said, that house might look nice, but that shit is filthy on the inside. And that's what we're going through. And we need to realize that China is vulnerable. We should be attacking them. Instead, we're defending their attacks every 12 hours, their cyber attacks on our shit.
Check this out. The mental health of the military is very important. Morale is very important. And when you have your soldiers not willing to fight because they don't believe in the cause anymore, well, you have a problem.
They don't agree with that shit.
So when you have them divided over gender politics and race and all these other issues, it's a problem, because your troop morale is plummeting because they're divided psychologically. So
they won't fight the enemy because they're fighting each other.
In the military, there's newspapers, there's print media, there's radio shows, there's TV shows. They play them on the ships, they play them on the bases, they play them all over the place, right? You can go pick up Stars and Stripes newspapers anywhere on a military base, okay? But the media outlets promoting the military as military news are actually propaganda machines for the Department of Defense. Recruitment has stalled as thousands of troops have been discharged for refusing to get the vaccine. So the Pentagon is offering a sign-on bonus of $50,000, and a lot of people are not taking it still. 240,000 troops face discharge as a result of vaccine refusal. No one is willing to replace them because the leadership has shown it has zero loyalty, a code that has historically been the modus operandi. The problem goes back years. Some of this anti-militaristic mentality can be traced back to the military's own printed news publications. The Defense Media Activity was created in 2005 to consolidate 4 media news organizations: the Army's Soldier Magazine, the Naval Media Center, Army Broadcasting Soldier, and Air Force News Agency. It wasn't until 2011 that this news conglomerate went live with over half the organizations stationed around the world. The Project for Media and National Security is a subchapter of the Defense Writers Group. Their newly appointed director comes from the New York Times. According to their website, canceling fake news is a primary goal. The president of the Carnegie Corporation, pay attention to that name.
Carnegie Hall, Carnegie, New York.
Yeah, Carnegie family. The president of the Carnegie Corporation, which supplies their funding, Vartan Gregorian, was from Iran. His credentials include serving on the boards of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Human Rights Watch, Qatar Foundation, and McGraw-Hill Companies. The Defense Writers Group, partially funded by the Carnegie Corporation of New York, is led by David Ensor from VOA and CNN, both military propaganda operatives. The group is under the auspices of the DoD and NATO with tags for climate change and COVID. So
McGraw-Hill. Remember when we were kids, they used to make our textbooks. These people control everything.
Yeah, but that's Rockefeller. McGraw-Hill
Yep.
is Rockefeller.
Yep.
So, because Rockefeller is the one that designed the school systems and the school books and the medicine that we take. So
Remember, he said, him and Henry Ford, I do not want a nation of thinkers. So the man who's in charge of your children's education and your education does not want a nation of thinkers.
Yep.
Look, I remember this when I was younger. The old heads, brothers would tell us about, and we saw it in a couple of movies. It wasn't World War II, but it was more Vietnam. Remember, they had that chick, hey, black GI. They don't care about you anyway. She would be on the radio in like Saigon.
Yeah.
And she would talk with all sexy, like, black GI, you should defect. They don't care about you. When you go home, you won't get no job.
Right.
And
using words like soul brother and shit like that.
Soul brother, yeah. So the propaganda on the other side was vicious also.
Yeah. So check it out. So according to the DoD website, everyone is so busy, there are no advisories, no releases, no contracts, no speeches, no publications planned. Despite the many media claims that World War III is imminent, they remain on vacation indefinitely. Stars and Stripes is a media outlet controlled by the DoD under the Defense Media Activity. Any information, news, or articles must be pre-approved by the DoD. Lloyd Austin, Kathleen Hicks, the deputy director. Hicks came from the Clinton White House and the Kissinger Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS,
Henry Kissinger
is directly tied to Agenda 2030. American Military News, one more, is owned by Kellen Guida, a New Yorker whose previous experience was as project manager for anonymous architectural firm, is the source of the Gateway Pundit article from American Military News. The writer of the story being picked up by the Gateway Pundit is by Ryan Morgan, whose previous experience is listed as the New York Times.
That's a lot to take in. That was the point I was making earlier when I said it's one thing when you know China and Russia are your enemy. It's another thing when you have companies and billionaires like fucking Gates was more worried about making money on the vaccine. Now our whole military is splintered behind this damn vaccine thing, is LBGT shit, and now they can't replace the people. And if World War III happened right now, it's a good chance we might not have any troops. So that's the kind of shit that we don't want out there. Look, here's the point I was making about talking about the whole black situation in Nam. Black men, we we were loyal to our country, even though this country treated us like shit. So they knew that shit wouldn't work. They might get 5 or 6 guys, but they weren't going to get a lot of people. Now you got everybody arguing about shit and wanting to be recognized, wanting to be heard, and not doing their job. If you're in the military, I respect you, but I need you to do your job. I need you to be prepared for the shit that's coming. And we need to figure out who our real enemies are, and not be splintered. Like I get it, there are things that divide us, but don't make the things that divide you bigger than the things that should unite us and make us be able to go against a common threat to all our safety and all our shit. And like I said, that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, that dude, he's evil. That's another George Soros he just wants to make money and be in charge. So you got to watch that shit. This is the shit we're warning you people about. To our military brothers and sisters, I get it. We appreciate you. We need y'all. Be vigilant. I get it.
But the enemy that is attacking all of us is not just China. It's China, it's George Soros, it's the Fourth Reich, it's the people who are in this socialist Marxism bullshit. They're trying to bring back technocracy. It's tech companies that are bowing down to this shit and creating they are extending the surveillance state into our homes. This is basically it is non-linear warfare, but it is a 5-dimensional combat zone. And you can't fight on one plane and be satisfied with those victories on the 3rd dimension. It's beyond all that.
You're fighting them all at once. The whole thing when they tell you can't do more than one thing, you have no choice. You have to have an opinion and have an understanding that all these people are your enemy, and they don't really care about your well-being.
When I went to I showed everybody about this TikTok. I showed them the TikTok video, and then I showed them like the terms of agreement, the terms of the service agreement and the terms of usage,
terms and conditions of usage.
Yeah. So and then I explained to them. I said, so now we're going to take all this shit off the phones. Like I'm going to delete it off your phone. I'm going to delete it off your phone. Because what you're being offered is not worth enslavement. And you have to, like, if you don't show people this video, if you don't show them the terms of agreement, the service terms, and if you don't show them a contract that you just sign away when you get that program, they think you're a fucking nut. And I'm like, no. Let me explain to you exactly what this is. Like, and then like this pall comes over them, and it's the coronavirus scare that you saw, like when people were watching the news and they saw people fighting over toilet paper. It's that I see this similar look in their eyes, like, oh, this is real, this is happening. Well, yes, this is happening.
They can control other devices on your Wi-Fi system. Why do they need that power?
No, and why do you? But cutting through that disbelief.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to cutting through the disbelief that, no, man, everything is safe. Everything is okay. No, dude, it's not.
That's a splash of reality washed over your face.
Duct tape. There's a news story going around about how there's polio has been found in the wastewater in New York City.
Yes.
I had a homegirl hit me up and sent me this news article from July 27th in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the newspaper here in Atlanta, and how they tested the wastewater in College Park, that at the bottom of Fulton County. Atlanta is Fulton County, okay? So down at the bottom of Fulton County, the far south part is College Park near the airport, and that's where a lot of like the water waste is collected from the city. And
hey, so what are they encouraging you to do now because of this?
Nothing, because they haven't revealed the test results to the public yet.
Oh no! Check the news outlets. They're encouraging everybody to get vaccinated again for polio. Yes.
Ain't that a bitch?
Oh, I thought you saw it.
I didn't see that.
Oh, yes. So now this is another vaxxer scare where they're like, if you're not vaccinated, you should give. Look, here's the deal with polio.
I already got a polio vaccination. Guess what? We got that when we were before we joined elementary school. Yeah. Too late for that, buddy. I've been had mine.
Look, here's the deal. Polio would pop up every 5 or 6 years when you had somebody coming from a foreign country and they would have it or they didn't know they had it, and they would quarantine that person, get them some help, and shit would be done. But now they're like, okay, wait a minute. So COVID didn't scare people bad enough to get vaccinated, but I bet you the idea of getting polio will scare the shit out of them. Now we've talked about this on past podcasts. Bill and Melinda Gates, polio oral vaccine. Make sure you don't ever get an oral vaccine for polio because that shit causes paralysis. Look it up, and that shit happened in India. That's why the people in India don't fuck with Bill and Melinda Gates. And look, you wonder why these countries like merge together. It's not because they all hate America. They hate America, but they hate Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation worse. And you need to look into that shit. But yes, polio is a physical disease. So that they're like, okay, this little cough, this little thing didn't work. But I bet you the idea of being paralyzed will scare the shit out these motherfuckers. Right. And they'll run and clamor and ask for another vaccine.
They're doing whatever they can to get that nightmare machine going again. Boosters, and scare the shit out of people to keep the pharmaceutical industry that's created by the fucking Nazis still going and cranking.
Hey, the deepest shit I heard about that vaxxer shit. Old boy broke the shit down on Hidden Colors. It's comma. He was talking about. He said, "Yeah, I worked in the education system." And I remember this shit because remember we had like one or two kids that was like Jehovah's Witnesses and they didn't have a vaccine. He said your child will be ostracized. Every time you go on a field trip, every time there's a problem, every time somebody gets sick, the kid that is not vaccinated will be blamed for that shit. If your child is not vaccinated and he's in the public school system or she's in the public school system, they will be ostracized. And every time you guys can't do a function or something because the kid ain't vaccinated, they will blame that kid and all the other kids will start.
But listen, man. They put polio in the wastewater.
Oh.
That is a saboteur. That is war by other means. Those are quiet weapons for silent wars. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in World War III right now.
As we speak, it's happening. Hey, you remember this. Remember when, right before 9/11, there was a big anthrax scare. And remember, all they were able to trace all the anthrax except for one. There was a letter sent with anthrax to somebody in Florida. I don't remember the complete details, but I remember. So they okay, we're going to test this letter because it had powder in it. Oh my God, it was anthrax. Now here's where it gets dicey. They never figured out who sent that letter, but they did figure out what lab that anthrax came from. It was from an American lab. How the fuck did they get to it? And they don't bring that shit up because that's when the whodunits they ain't solved yet. So who the fuck got access to the anthrax and took it from his American lab and mailed it to somebody? No. See, like I said, there are real stories out there that they blow up for 5-6 days or a month or two, then they just die out. I need some resolution because what you're going to find out is they figured out who it was. It's going to be CIA or NS. It's going to be somebody. It's going to be one of our own home people. It's going to be some George Soros, some Bill Gates shit. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be somebody we knew that had access to that and had a shitload of money. But look that shit up. I can't remember. Like I said, please forgive me. I don't remember what year it was. But yeah, they never saw an anthrax letter.
Right. So if you weaken the military so much that you have these transgender soldiers and like straight people don't want to be around that shit, or that like you have women that are not comfortable showering around dudes, chicks with dicks that didn't get that shit cut off, and it's just freaking everybody the fuck out and they don't want to be fucking around it, and everybody keeps pushing this shit down your throat every fucking day. How you gotta accept it, not realizing that the money behind that's funding this, the money funding these campaigns, comes from billionaire transhumanists, not transgender. Because these transhumanists, if you accept transgenders first, the next thing right behind that is transhumanism. And then you're not a cool kid because you don't have a chip in your head and you're not down with transgenders. And they're just conditioning you to be a fucking yes person.
They're conditioning you for the word trans, that the word trans is not a bad thing. And
yes,
and that's what
listen, to it. So behind all this are a bunch of atheists that do not pray to God. They don't pray to the God that you believe in. They pray to the altar of scientism. And the lower underlings that are middle management and the lower management that are fucking running everybody around the world don't realize that their bosses report to fallen angels. And those fallen angels hate humanity because they're trapped here and they want you to be trapped here. They don't want you to escape this prison planet. They want
Look,
you to be just like they are so you can be in a shitty ass fucking prison being controlled by fallen angels.
look. Whenever we have these conversations, and people just get turned off by when you talk about pedophilia, and how come everything goes back to that? It's not our fault. It goes back to that because it does. Whenever you see these kids separated from their parents, whenever you see these rich folks,
Because that is a
got,
manifestation of demonic possession.
and that's some real shit where people don't understand that we're like, why do you always bring that? We're not bringing it up. It always lands there.
No, it's
This
always there. You have
yeah.
been avoiding it. That's the problem.
Look, this Lolita Express. Trump flew with Epstein. Bill Gates. When you ask Bill Gates about Epstein, he starts. I don't know. He's dead. Okay, the guy being dead, and you fly with him. Two separate conversations. Did you fly on that plane? What was your point on that island? That's the whole point.
That's just deflection, and he's
Yeah,
shitty at deflection.
he's terrible at it. He's terrible at it. So it's crazy that guys that you're a billionaire. How come Elon Musk can't stand him? He didn't fly the Lolita Express. Bezos can't stand him. But Bill Gates did. Yeah, you were there for
Right.
the kids. That's what you was there for. We're trying to make it happen. You always hear about blood sacrifice. You always hear about adrenochrome. You always hear about these. You're like, you're crazy. No, pay attention. They always end up there. It has to do with human sacrifice. Has to do with fucking sex rituals. Has to do with molesting and taking kids from their parents. Has to do with all that shit. That it always ends up there because these motherfuckers are worshiping some evil shit. And that's what we're trying to get y'all to understand is that we don't end up there, but when you connect the dots, they end up there. So, like, I'm just trying to say, why did fucking Bill Gates need to fly a plane? When that guy got more money than God, he can buy his own plane. He can buy first class, or he can rustle up a plane from no place. So there was no reason for that motherfucker to be on there. That he was with little kids. That's what this is about. Please stop admiring a motherfucker because they're a billionaire.
Listen, man.
Please.
Listen. A lot of people don't look beyond, the messenger. They want to shoot the messenger. They don't see like where the message is coming from, and they forget things like, you know what? It was Satan that was doing the work of Lucifer when he offered the apple to Eve.
Look, Ghislaine Maxwell got less time than R. Kelly. Look, hold it. R. Kelly's a piece of shit. I'm not defending R. Kelly. That's not what I'm saying, please. But the fact that was girls for himself. He's a piece of shit. But Ghislaine Maxwell was getting little girls for the elite. How does she get less come the mother where you were using the shit didn't get no time at all? She's the fall guy. She's a fall gal. So that's my point. We don't end up at this place. That's where all this shit ends up at. When you realize these rich elites and what they're doing and how look, another form of control as black folks, they controlled us physically, mentally, they stole our religion, all that shit, but they also controlled you sexually. They would always do fucked up shit to you because when you're powerful, when you're in charge, sex and finances also go hand in hand. So this is one of these things we're trying to tell you that these no for an answer. And they got fucked up bottom. We want you guys to recognize this silent war shit. That this non-linear war shit is that you don't realize that you're fighting on multiple fronts on purpose. You don't realize that, it's easy to call a foreign government your enemy, but it's hard to recognize that you got companies and you got rich motherfucking billionaires who got rich off you who are also your enemy. That you're just a number. They're just juicing you and taking your money and your soul and your power. Fear is power. They feed off your fear. So of course there's a new disease out. Of course there's a new virus on your computer. Of course you got to get your car fixed. Of course you can't afford to pay your bills because inflation is at 11%. They're only offering you a 2% raise. That's that shit. So you as a human being, we always have to fight on multiple fronts. Where we have sayings that tell you shit like, oh man, you can't do two things at once. Yes, yes, motherfucker, you can, and you don't have a choice. You have to have discernment on multiple fronts at the same time.
All the time. Discernment. Discernment is what steers you away from fuckery. Discernment is what allows you to see when somebody is trying to play you. Game recognized game. Game
Yes,
recognized game is discernment, man. So,
but some people don't have it. Some people, that's the whole
well,
problem.
bitch, catch up, okay? Because we listen, we in the third quarter going into the fourth, and we ain't got time for you to learn how to dribble now, okay? So you got to fucking bring the fucking A game. But listen, this is the thing, man, is that when you're looking at a situation, zoom out. Don't detach your emotions from anything that is a chaotic situation and look at it calmly. Slow down your breathing and pay attention to the situation from a long view.
Well,
Because
don't make up your mind before you have the facts. People walk in these situations, they want the good news. So if you want good news, it's very easy for you to be lied to. It's very easy for you not to see what you should be searching for the truth. And don't make up your mind before you get the facts. That's what happens.
right. But this show is about how nonlinear warfare, the art of war, how the CCP, how the communist connections and the billionaires in Europe and the Fourth Reich are all together. And they're all working to bring down the superpower that is the United States. Now, it's fucked up for us that we happen to live here. So therefore, we actually have to give a fuck about this because this fight it's here. It's here. There's no more running from this shit. There's no more sticking your head in the sand. Like, we are in it now. Do you dig? So the problem is everybody was willing to fight with their neighbor over like this, the smallest and most stupidest shit. You cannot get caught up in that. That's what we're saying to you is do not get caught up in these petty squabbles. Okay? Don't get caught up in things. Don't behave in the manner that they want you to behave in. The same way that you wouldn't be some ignorant Negro being a stereotype or behaving in a manner that will cause you to get incarcerated or your life being controlled by the state.
Disagreeing with somebody is not a death sentence.
The same applies to this. Exercise your rights. Exercise your freedom to information and gather as much information as you can to arm yourself so you understand how to speak and act and be effective within your own life. Work in your front yard. Okay? Don't worry about trying to like do shit overseas because you don't have enough money, you don't have the reach to do that. Work in the area that you are in and you can control. So you worry about your part of the garden, all right? And somebody else is going to worry about theirs. But if you got snakes coming in, cut the fucking heads off of those fucking snakes.
You unite and stop the snakes from getting in your garden. Yeah, because if you have 15 snakes, it's two. One of y'all is going to be hard, but two of y'all, it'd be easier. So, like I said, my neighbor might be gay. That's cool. My neighbor might be white. That's cool. But we have a common goal to stop them snakes. That's what we're trying to tell you. When you fight against a common enemy, you're more effective. And don't let the small shit. Don't sweat the small shit.
Don't fall for the okie doke. That's it.
Piccolo plays the motherfucker.
That's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.